The Neural DSP Quad Cortex has been people's go-to profiler/flow modeling unit for a while now, despite Neural taking up to 4 years to deliver upon some of their promises of features that it was supposed to have shortly after release. But at a retail price point of nearly $1,700, it's definitely not obtainable for everybody, and there hasn't been a unit to truly compete with it at a low price point. Sure, the embarrassment that is the Nano Cortex exists now, and if all you want to have is a cheap profiler, that is definitely the unit for you. If you want versatility outside of the amp profiling though, it really isn't all that good. So I was quite surprised when Moore recently sent me an email containing information about this. The GE1000, or the version I'm holding here, the GE1000Li, meaning it has a rechargeable lithium battery to make it usable without being plugged in. And yes, I'm holding it with gloves because it's extremely prone to fingerprints and I want the footage to look nice. Although I maybe should have thought of that before dropping a screwdriver onto it, scratching the finish on the front face. But this is Moore's budget answer to the Quad Cortex, and to the demand for an affordable profiler with as much tonal versatility as the Quad Cortex has, and with a screen. Right off the bat, I am being paid for this video, but you will find when watching the video that hasn't stopped me from being 100% honest about it after spending about 2 weeks testing it thoroughly. So watch first, and then go ahead and comment if you like. Now, I don't believe I need to point this out, but this thing is no eye candy. Moore have always been great at designing beautiful guitars, but the tech side of their product catalog has always left something to be desired aesthetically. Although, to be fair, the looks of a guitar are much more important than the looks of a pedal unit that's going to be on the floor and getting stepped on. And it does have a lovely RGB backlight on the bottom when turned on. Still though, wow. I'm getting really tired of the gloves. I'll just cover it in fingerprints, I don't care. What matters is the inside though, so let's turn it on and check out the features. Upon turning it on, you are greeted with what is essentially an expanded version of the GTRS tone library, a collection of presets I've spoken highly of before, but in a different context. The great thing about these GTRS guitars is the convenience of having a guitar with an entire amp simulator suite baked in. And as fun as those sounds are to use at home, and as useful as I believe these would be in a live setting, I've always said I don't believe them to be album-ready tones or anything. And they don't need to be, because nobody is going into the studio with them. I've recorded countless tracks with these guitars, but almost never using the unique technology. I always just run the guitars with the pickups into an amp. So if you're buying a separate unit that so closely resembles a Quad Cortex, that likely means you're going to want mix-ready tones. And that's what I find strange about this. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't record an entire amazing sounding album with this. Groundbreaking records have been recorded with the most bottom-of-the-barrel gear you can imagine, and it can sound like this. But there is still a world or two between these sounds and the sounds Neural DSP offers. But let's move on to the profiling bit. My problem with a profiler as a whole has always been the fact that it's only an accurate representation of your amp with the settings in the exact position of when you took the profile. Basically a snapshot of the current settings. And as soon as you then twist the mids knob on your profiler, it's not going to respond the same way the mids knob on your amp would. Because how could it know how delicate your amp's controls are based on that one snapshot? That's why if you buy a plugin based on a real amp, it's usually going to sound infinitely better than your profile of that same physical amp, because big companies like Neural DSP have technology that does this. It captures the entire spectrum of sounds the amp is capable of. Nevertheless, there is a lot of demand for profiling technology, and this does meet that. It's a fine profiler. Here is my PV Invective MH through a V30 and greenback loaded cab, mic'd up with an SM57 and a Sennheiser E906. And here is a profile of that. Exact same guitar track, just reamped. And that is good enough. I can't say for sure how it measures up to the profiling abilities of a Quad Cortex, Nano Cortex, or a Kemper, since I have none of those at my disposal right now, but it's good enough. So let's list off what I think the pros and cons of this unit are, starting off with the pros. At a price point of $519 US, or $579 with the rechargeable battery, this is the most affordable profiler on the market. If you don't insist on the battery, you are saving $50 by getting this over a Nano Cortex, and you're getting a unit with a touchscreen and more tonal versatility. It contains Moore's Groove Station, which is essentially a looping station with optional customizable drum beats. Not the most incredible sounding drum beats, but it can be fun for jamming out with, and that's never going to be used in a professional setting anyway. It does have an expression pedal input to control effects like wah or volume with if you choose to add those to your digital signal chain. It features an effects loop, so you can integrate your favorite physical guitar pedals into the chain as well. You can load third-party IRs into it if you so desire. I personally don't have any to do that with, but I know many people keep an entire library. And if you already own Moore or GTRS products, you can connect the wireless foot switch to the GS1000 and use it to control the presets from a distance. Fairly extensive list of pros, I'd say, so let's move on to the cons. It looks horrible. Negligible to most, but the more I look at it, the more I wonder if it really needed those orange highlights. It doesn't have the same intuitive controls the Quad Cortex does, where you can use the foot switches as knobs for the selected part of your signal chain. Granted, that wouldn't have made too much sense since it has half the amount of switches, and also it's questionable whether you'd even want to constantly be touching the same things you step on with your venue bathroom piss-covered shoes, but still worth noting. And perhaps most importantly, the clientele for this unit seems relatively niche to me. Not non-existent, but more niche than the potential Quad Cortex customer. And here's why. This is for a person who wants an affordable profiler and perhaps cares more about its profiling abilities than about the built-in library of tones. Because while these are more than usable, I would not take these into a studio. On stage, sure, I could see how maybe wanting an affordable floor unit to keep up with your band is something you'd want, and maybe even the wireless battery-powered one, so you could have an entire rig consisting of just a guitar and the GS1000 Li with absolutely minimal cables on stage. But lots of people have gotten rid of all their analog gear in favor of a Quad Cortex, and now use that in the studio to record all of their songs and albums, because those tones are then 100% reproducible on stage with the same unit and preset. And I just doubt that's going to be the use case for this one. But again, $519 to $579. That's about $1,100 less than a Quad Cortex. And when you take that price difference into account, the sacrifices really are minimal. If you just want an affordable floor modeling unit, you're likely going to choose something like a Tonix over this. But a Tonix can't make profiles. So while it's an immensely niche product, I believe it's going to make people in that niche extremely happy. Because I'd say it's at least 55 to 60% of what a quad Cortex is, at 34% of the retail price of a quad, while also offering insane portability with the optional built-in battery, which isn't even a feature Neural DSP offers, God knows why. And while I haven't precisely tracked how many hours I've used this thing for, it arrived with the battery charged to about 90%, and I haven't had to recharge it since. So it's safe to say this is something you could take on tour, recharge every night, and then go on stage with cable-free. So thank you for watching. If you're watching this on day one, I hope there are affiliate links to buy it in the description, or just any kind of links, because today on January 16th is release day of this unit, so I'm not entirely sure of its availability yet, but I will update the links if they're not in there yet. If you want one, links in the description. Thank you to Moore for supplying the unit a few weeks pre-release, allowing me to make this video on release day. Thank you to you for watching, and I will see you around.